For your entire life, you've been told Earth has one moon, one companion, one satellite, one pale disk watching over us at night. But in 2025, astronomers confirmed something they'd been quietly tracking for decades: a second moon. Small, dark, nearly invisible, orbiting Earth in a pattern so precise it shouldn't be natural. They call it a quasi-moon, a cosmic hitchhiker, a temporary capture. But here's what they're not telling you. It's been there for at least 60 years, maybe longer, and its composition doesn't match anything we've seen before. Metallic signatures, hollow structure, an orbit that synchronizes with human satellites. This isn't just another space rock drifting through our gravity well. This is something else. Welcome back to Beyond the Forbidden. Today we're exposing the hidden companion that's been watching us from the shadows. A discovery so strange that NASA went silent the moment independent researchers started asking questions. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications, because what you're about to learn will change how you see the night sky. Let's begin. September 2025. A team of astronomers tracking near-Earth objects detected something unusual. Designation 2025 PN7. Size roughly the size of a house. Orbit 365 days, perfectly synchronized with Earth's revolution around the Sun. At first glance it seemed like another asteroid, but the data didn't fit. PN7 wasn't just passing by, it was locked in a gravitational dance with Earth, following us like a shadow, never crashing, never leaving, just there. This wasn't the first discovery of its kind. In 1986, astronomers found 3,753 Crunia, another quasi-moon. Then came 2003 YN107, then 2016 HO3. Objects that orbit the Sun but remain gravitationally bound to Earth, caught in a delicate balance between two massive bodies. But PN7 was different. Its orbit brought it closer to Earth than any previous quasi-moon. Close enough that for weeks each year, it passes through Earth's shadow and becomes completely invisible. Close enough that radar couldn't initially distinguish it from space debris. Close enough that some researchers started asking, if this has been orbiting us for decades, what else are we missing? And that's when things got strange. Early analysis showed an unusual radar signature. Not the diffuse reflection you'd expect from porous rock. Something sharper, more defined, metallic. NASA downplayed it, called it inconclusive data, said further study was needed. Then they stopped talking about it altogether.
Here's what should disturb you.
Orbital calculations suggested PN7 had been following Earth since at least 1965. That's the entire space age, the Apollo missions, the Space Shuttle program, the International Space Station. 60 years of astronomical observation, and nobody mentioned it publicly until 2025. NASA's official explanation? It wasn't significant enough to warrant attention. But that's a lie. Objects this close to Earth are tracked obsessively. They represent collision risks, mining opportunities, strategic defense concerns. Every near-Earth object larger than a car gets catalogued, analyzed, and monitored. Yet PN7 flew under the radar for 6 decades. Leaked correspondence between research institutions reveals the truth. There was internal debate about how to classify PN7. Not whether it was significant, but whether its composition warranted restricted study. Multiple radar stations detected the same anomaly. Reflections indicating high metal content. Structural density inconsistent with natural asteroids. Amateur astronomers who tracked PN7 independently reported the same findings. They posted their data online. Those posts disappeared within weeks. One researcher described it as uncomfortably artificial in a now deleted forum thread. Another noted that PN7's albedo, its reflectivity, was far too low for typical lunar material. It wasn't just dark, it was absorbing light in ways that suggested surface composition unlike any known celestial body. This is the pattern we see repeatedly. Discovery, analysis, silence. When something doesn't fit the accepted model, it gets buried. Not because it's false, because it's inconvenient.
Let's talk about how quasi-moons work.
Because understanding the mechanics makes the anomalies even stranger. Unlike Earth's natural moon, quasi-moons don't orbit our planet directly. They orbit the Sun, but their trajectory keeps them gravitationally tied to Earth. Think of it as a cosmic balancing act. The Sun pulls them outward, Earth pulls them inward. The result is a complex shifting orbit that occasionally brings them close to us before swinging them away again. Most quasi-moons are temporary captures. They stay for a few decades, maybe a century, before being flung back into independent solar orbits. But PN7's orbit is unusually stable. Computer models show it's been in this configuration for far longer than expected. Some projections suggest it could remain captured for thousands of years. That level of stability is rare, almost suspiciously rare. Then there's its trajectory. PN7 follows a path that periodically brings it into alignment with Lagrange point L4, a gravitational sweet spot where satellites naturally cluster. For a random asteroid to drift into an orbit that synchronizes with human satellite zones is unlikely. For it to maintain that synchronization for decades is statistically improbable, unless it's not random. Some researchers noted that PN7's velocity adjustments, subtle changes in speed and direction, occur at intervals that don't match natural orbital decay. They match correction burns, the kind of adjustments you'd expect from a maneuvering spacecraft, not a passive rock. NASA's response? Natural perturbations from gravitational interactions. But gravitational interactions don't create patterns this precise.
Here's where it gets even stranger. Historical records describe second moons. In 1100 AD, Chinese astronomers documented a dim companion of the moon, visible only at twilight. Hopi oral traditions speak of a shadow moon that follows the bright one, appearing and disappearing across generations. Maori legends describe a dark twin that walks behind the moon goddess Hina, visible only to those who know where to look. Pliny the Elder, writing in 77 AD, mentioned twin lunar reflections during eclipses that could not be explained by atmospheric phenomena. For centuries, these accounts were dismissed as mythology, misidentified planets, atmospheric illusions. But orbital simulations show that some quasi-moons could have been visible to ancient civilizations during periods of optimal alignment, bright enough to be noticed, persistent enough to enter folklore. What if these weren't myths? What if ancient astronomers were recording real observations of objects we've only recently rediscovered? And if they saw these companions thousands of years ago, what happened to them? Where did they go? Most quasi-moons drift away eventually, but some, like PN7, remain. Which raises the question, why? After the initial announcement in September 2025, something changed. Media coverage stopped. NASA's public updates ceased. University research pages quietly scrubbed mentions of PN7. Even the online orbit tracker that amateur astronomers use to follow near-Earth objects was updated. PN7's trajectory was removed. The official explanation? To prevent misinformation and public confusion. But that doesn't track. Asteroid tracking data is public. NASA maintains live feeds for dozens of near-Earth objects far less interesting than PN7. Why selectively hide this one? Independent researchers who continued analyzing PN7's orbit noticed something disturbing. Its path wasn't just stable, it was optimized. PN7 passes through zones of minimum solar radiation exposure. Its trajectory avoids major meteor streams. It remains in Earth's shadow during periods of high solar flare activity. These aren't random characteristics. These are survival strategies. For a natural object, that's not just unlikely, it's impossible. One astronomer, speaking anonymously, described it as behavior you'd expect from something designed to remain hidden and intact for as long as possible. That quote appeared in a single, obscure journal. The article was retracted 3 weeks later. This is how institutional silence works. Not by denying the discovery, but by controlling access to the conversation. If you can't discuss PN7 without being labeled fringe, then functionally it doesn't exist. But the data doesn't care about narratives, and the data suggests PN7 is not behaving like a passive rock.
Let's examine the possibilities. Theory 1. Captured asteroid. Simple. A chunk of rock from the asteroid belt drifted into Earth's gravity and got stuck. This is the official explanation, but it doesn't account for the metallic composition. It doesn't explain the orbital precision, and it definitely doesn't explain why PN7's radar profile suggests a hollow structure. Theory 2. Ancient debris. 4.5 billion years ago, a Mars-sized object called Theia collided with Earth. The impact ejected material that eventually coalesced into the Moon. Some scientists believe fragments from that collision could still be orbiting PN7, might be a relic of that ancient cataclysm, a piece of primordial Earth drifting through space. That would explain its proximity and stability, but it doesn't explain the metallic signature or the structural anomalies. Theory 3. Something else. This is where science meets speculation, but the evidence demands we consider it. PN7's radar profile resembles thin-walled structures. Not solid rock, not dense metal, something hollow. Something with internal cavities. Natural asteroids don't have hollow interiors. They're solid, porous, or rubble piles. But hollow? That suggests artificial construction. Now, NASA will never officially endorse that idea, but consider what we know. A small object in a stable, optimized orbit. Metallic composition. Low reflectivity. Hollow structure. Behavior that resembles active maneuvering. If this were a satellite launched by another nation, we'd recognize it immediately as artificial. But because it's been here longer than our space program, we default to calling it natural. Maybe that's the wrong assumption.
Here's the most unsettling part. PN7 isn't alone. Computer models suggest there could be dozens of these objects in similar orbits, small, dark, nearly invisible quasi-moons that have followed Earth for centuries. Most aren't large enough to detect with current technology. They only reveal themselves when they pass in front of distant stars or emit faint infrared signatures. How many are out there? We don't know. How long have they been there? We don't know. What are they? We don't know. But their existence suggests Earth's gravitational field has been quietly accumulating these companions for millennia. Each one could hold clues about our planet's history, about the formation of the solar system, about the violent collisions that shaped the early Earth. Or they could be something else entirely. Witnesses, recorders, silent observers placed in orbit long before humans looked up and wondered what was watching back. Maybe PN7 is just a rock, a cosmic accident caught in Earth's gravity. Maybe the metallic signatures are natural ore deposits. Maybe the hollow structure is a misinterpreted data artifact. Maybe the orbital precision is coincidence. Or maybe we're being watched by something we don't understand. Either way, it's real. It's up there. And the fact that we missed it for 60 years should tell you something. For all our technology, all our satellites, all our confidence in understanding the cosmos, we still don't know what's above our heads. The sky keeps its secrets, and some of them have been orbiting us every single night. This is Beyond the Forbidden, and now you know. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, share this, and remember, the next time you look up at the moon, ask yourself, is it really alone? See you next time on Beyond the Forbidden.